Alright, it is.
Ooh, I like how you have their logo.
I know!
Come check out this stream. Well, it's not really live.
Nice.
And we've got live chat, so I'll be able to read off messages. And then this is actually, it should be, YouTube like records everything, right?
Yep.
Sweet.
Yeah, there's last night's catch those.
Oh yeah,
This company was
Alright. Yeah, great angle. Thanks so much for helping.
No problem.
I'll see if I can't get some sent down.
Pretty good. That makes sense.
I've been eating them for years. I knew they were bad.
Yeah, it says right here, lifestyle certified.
I don't know the hot chocolate. So it's just like regular. Yeah, no,
yeah, just like,
No, that's Norwegian.
there's like 3 different ways to like control them. That's why I learned about
Going there, like, the hobby cups kind of what are you guys doing?
I guess like today I'll probably yeah. Have to do the vertical.
It's easy.
The there. We're gonna do it today.
Just gonna give them a few more minutes to come in.
Well, so there's 2 of them.
Where are you guys located in Boulder? We're not. Oh. I coexist in pivotal space actually, so. Oh, okay. But that's when there's like movement, there's like a little. Yeah, just like. I was just curious. It sounds like a mouse. Like a really heavy mouse.
I guess not as Well, thanks.
Hey everyone, can I grab your attention? Thank you so much for all being here. I love seeing all these cohorts intermingling. It's amazing. Please give it up for Tara. I won't give her too much of an introduction because she has a presentation. She is an alumni of Galvanize, G8 Boulder. So she does know some of the things that you're all going through. I'm going to be sort of moderating this towards the end. Hello to anyone on the stream. If you have questions, feel free to type them in. Obviously, for you in the room here, there will be time. You can just raise your hand, and we can do all that. So let's give her our attention. Thank you.
Hi, and thank you so much for coming. As he mentioned, I went through G8, which seems ages ago looking at there's 64 up there on the wall. Oh my gosh.
I think 75's in this room, right?
Wow. All right, so I'm the old bogey then. I work for Cognizant Technologies, and I came to Cognizant through Quick Left, which I'm sure some of you have heard of in Boulder. We were acquired almost 2 years ago now. But who Cognizant is, we are Cognizant Technology Solutions Corp. It's an American multinational corporation. We are a Fortune 500 company. Provides customer information, technology, consulting, and business processing, outsourcing services. That last bit is changing, which is part of the reason we need you. We are starting to take things in and provide services internal instead of outsourcing. So we're looking to have a stronger skill set inside. Those are some names of companies that we may or may not work with. I can't tell you who we work with, but we work almost exclusively with Fortune 500 companies. And there are pros and cons to being a company at that size. We, at Quick Left, when we were acquired, we had like 35 people. And Cognizant has 260,000 people, which is the size of Buffalo, New York. All right? And about 2.5 times the size of Boulder, about a third the size of Denver. So we are a city and a nation all unto ourselves. And we have all sorts of guidelines that dictate how we live as well. So we are a massive corporation, and there's goods and bads to that. What we're doing. I am from the business unit that is called digital engineering. And so as you can imagine, with a company that size, we have many business units. We have verticals and horizontals. We have a whole guidebook to abbreviations that are used because there are that many of them. And there is a whole application that is just built for our employees that teaches everything from Spanish to how to tie a bow tie to different types of cancers that are prevalent and everything else under the sun because our population is so diverse within the company. We are looking to hire within roughly 15 different states. Most of that, hopefully, in the next 2 to 3 months. There's roughly 45 to 50 positions that are open. All of them full stack, a variety of tech stacks within that. With that, you will go through 2 different aspects. You will go through a coding challenge, and a pairing assessment, and an HR assessment. So there's kind of 3 tiers to an interview process with them. One of the things that we're hoping to do is actually setting up a hiring event come January. I don't know the details on that yet. I'm hoping that it will be shared with me soon. But that is kind of the process that will be occurring for us. A few of the locations. We are looking for people who are willing to move. There might be possibilities in Colorado, but most of them are outside of this state. So, Boston, Chicago, Dallas, Detroit, New York and the tri-state area, Delaware, Pleasanton, California, and Amsterdam.
Okay.
Save that one. It's a rough spot, I know. We are an international company. We exist on all major continents. And so some of the perks that come from being with a company like that is the flexibility to move and to be in other locations and actually travel. And so once you're in and once you've paid your dues and kind of go through the processing, if you're like, manager, I'd really like to go check it out over there or work with that team, there is some flexibility to do that. So that being said, downsides to a large corporation, we don't move fast. And I have presented to Galvanize students in the past, and I have said things like, you'll get an offer in 48 hours, because that was what I was told, and I believed that at that point in time. We do not move that fast. With a company this size, it takes time. And I will be very perfectly honest, and I will eat the crow that is sitting on my plate. Those people that were told that it'd be hired and offered in 48 hours were talked to over the course of 6 months. All right? HR has its challenges, so be aware. So what we're trying to do is that we're trying to change our image and we're trying to change who we are. That being said, we do move slowly, and even our technology is coming to a place of almost being outdated. We do large, grand-scale monolithic applications, and they're painful, and our clients are, oh my gosh, we have to move forward. And yet we are not the small, lean, agile consultancies that are out there. But those people can't handle what we can handle on the scale side of things. So it's great, like what Quick Left would do, that's great. They can go build out like 10 apps. Pivotal can handle that too. Lots of different companies can handle that. But when you're working with a company that has 300 to 500 applications, and you want to move all of that to the cloud base, that's not going to happen with a small company. You need someone that can scale. And so that's part of the reason that we have the size of workforce that we do, mostly offshore in India, and they can brute force things out, and it's awesome. We have a huge workforce available to us. But we need to get them up to speed on current technology, which is where you guys come in, all right? We're not hiring a skill set. We're hiring a mindset, and it's something that we desperately need. We need people like yourselves who are in a position to be, I want to learn, I need to learn, I am fine to go and challenge myself. And by the simple fact of you being in a boot camp, you've quit other lives, you've quit other jobs, your family is being patient with you, hopefully, and you have taken a huge time and financial commitment to even be here. And honestly, most of Cognizant would look at you and go, holy crap, like they would never do that. The insecurity around jobs and income and all of that is something that's just unfathomable to them. So knowing that, we need an infusion of you. And so coming in, we need people that are familiar with XP, can do pair programming, know what test-driven development is familiar with cloud platforming and all of those types of aspects. So we're not saying, oh my gosh, you have to have this language, or you have to know React, you have to know this. That is not what we're looking for. If you do, bonus. But one of the things we need to know is that if we drop you on something, you're like, sweet, I'm gonna go learn it. And that you will take the initiative steps to actually pursue that. And that is something that within Cognizant, our current developers are just starting to come to grips with, that that's gonna be an expectation. One of my jobs right now is that we are remapping our entire development team for all of Cognizant's, like 200,000 developers. We're re-tiering at different levels to assess and to educate. And that education is a mandated part of their continuance in the company. So that's something that's new, and we're learning who's willing to do that and who's not. And that's going to be a struggle for us. But that's part of the reason that we're making new hires too, of those that are actively in a learning process, which is a good thing. So what we need to do to get away from the giant perception there is that we need to give at least the illusion to our clients that we can be small and that we can be lean and agile and that we can still work as a team together, okay? And so we will be building out pockets. We will be building out in, Pivotal likes to think that they own the term labs, but it's not just a Pivotal thing. So we will be setting up labs or pods, very, very similar to how Pivotal does things. We are, I hate to use the phrase, but we are in bed with Pivotal. We are business partners with them, and we work very closely with them. And one of the ways that we're trying to evolve how we interact with our clients is that on clients that we overlap with, Pivotal will be like, hey, we'll come in and we'll re-platform and move anywhere from 1 to 10 apps that you have to a cloud platform. And then Cognizant will be like, and we can scale and step in and help them bring the other 200 to 300 of them up to a cloud platform. So we work very closely with them. I actually work out of their space in Boulder. I've been managing the PAL education, which is Platform Acceleration Labs. I think that's what that is. Too many abbreviations, but that is one of the aspects of education that we're doing. So yes, setting up pods and labs. So those locations that I talked about, those are all full stack developer positions. Some of those will be in lab situations, some of them won't. The current plan for our lab setup will be Boston and probably Dallas, Toronto, Boulder, Denver, but that's going to be kind of the last one on the list, and that's like 6 to 8 months out. But those are possibilities and those are opportunities. But there's no specific position that's like, ooh, I want to work in a lab situation. All of those positions and all of those locations, you could be tasked anywhere. So, why you? So, some of the benefits to being with a very large corporation is that you're not singing for your supper. You don't have to worry about whether you're going to get that next client. And with small companies, I've been with that, and you're like, it's a little tight this week, we're not going to refill the kegerator. So there's some benefits to that. You know that those Fortune 500 clients are going to be there. They're not going away, and they're just knocking at your door saying, can you get a move on? You guys are, and I'm going, oh, James still gives me nightmares of this, but Galvanize's favorite term, you're on the bleeding edge of technology, and we need that. I mean, a lot of our developers, a lot of our teams have been with Cognizant for 12 and 15 years, and I look at that and I'm baffled by that, and at the same time, that's really appealing. I mean, to be at a job long enough where you're like, the only thing I'm complaining about right now is that I'm working with the same people, and yeah, but it's security as well, which is a nice thing. There are phenomenal new technologies that are coming in, and we pair with Pivotal, but we pair with everyone. We're working with Google to do more education from them. We work with Microsoft Azure. We work with all of those companies to provide further education and to try and get our company up to speed. So there are lots of aspects, but positive change is what we need for our company, and that is where new infusion of blood comes from, which is why we need you. So that's job link. Talked with James about actually adding me as a guest into the student channels for Slack. So that way that over time, if you guys want to reach out to me and have specific questions, you're welcome to do that. I'm in the alumni channel, so I can be found there. But I will post that link specifically. That job posting says Chicago. Don't stress it. It's for all the positions, for all the locations. But that being said, with this posting, you need the flexibility to move. If you want to move, definitely apply. If you're like, nope, Colorado's where it's at, hang tight. I mean, you might get that, but we don't have those positions right now to promise to you. So that is what I have to say. So now I will open it up to you and see if you have any questions. Yeah?
So the listing says Chicago and there's other options available. Do you, in the process of interviewing, get to pick which city you're interested in? Or is it more like, oh, hey, we need you here?
Probably a little bit of both. Absolutely articulate it. Definitely put it out there what your top preferences are. So yeah, voice it, but we're looking for the flexibility to move. Yeah.
So actually more of a comment. So
Sure.
I'm a huge Cognizant fan. I actually work for Cognizant.
Yeah.
I worked for a company called Trizetto that was acquired by Cognizant, and I have to say, one of my favorite things about Cognizant that I think is super cool culturally, that was a big improvement that we saw, was a super yes mentality, which I think is really important to people in our position. We got used to at Trizetto for a long time. It was like, kind of like what you were saying with like the slow moving boat. It was like, oh no, we can't do that. That's not how we do things. Like, as soon as Cognizant came in, it was like, we'd go into client meetings and it was like, you know, I don't know if we can do that, but we're gonna try.
Yeah.
And it was exciting in that way to make new things happen. So I don't know. And that goes on top of all the amazing parts about great benefits and really cool stuff. So
this is the only company I've ever seen this way. This is amazing. One of their healthcare benefits is international travel medical coverage. Oh, I need LASIK. I can go to Switzerland with my spouse and get my LASIK done there, and they will cover that cost. Okay. Just saying. I mean, you'll want to do some research on what countries can offer you good quality medical services in different places, but talk about random. So yeah, that's one that's out there. And you're right, we are client facing to a fault in some sense. Like, I really appreciate that when we interact with a client, they're not told no. And there's pros and cons to that. I've definitively felt the cons to that as well, because you're like, yes, we can do that, you can do that. You turn around and go, oh crap, can we do that? Really? Oh, we need like 15 developers that we don't have yet to do that. So the great thing is that that's why we have such the reputation that we have with our clients, is that we will promise them, yeah, we will do that. It may not be on the timeline that you want, but we will do it, we will get it done. And that's awesome.
So is Cognizant looking at students like us because they had a bright idea to do it, or some people like you, like, hey, how about these people? And they're going, we'll try it.
So a little bit of both. Ingrid Alonji, who's co-founder for Quick Left, and she's on the chair for touring. She and I both have been fighting for the past 2 years to give Cognizant an understanding of who you are and what you can provide. They, as a company, really struggle because you're called, this is awesome, I love this, you're freshies, is what they call you. So it's really difficult to go to a client and present a freshie, because clients will say, no, we want someone with like 10 years of experience. And we're like, you don't actually want somebody with 10 years of experience, because they're so far down the rabbit hole of their profession and their track that trying to get them onto new curriculum and new ideas and new technology is really challenging at times. We need people who are actually out in current tech. And so we have educated and beaten down that door for the past 2 years, and we are finally starting to make some progress. And this is the first job posting that we have that specifically we're going after you, because we want that in our company. We need that. And so the hope is that this will be an experience that will be good on both sides. Now, that being said, we're not like other companies that you're like, James gives you great advice on learn your manager's name and who you're applying for. You will not know that. I'll just tell you that now. You do not get to find out a name of who you're going to be interviewing with or who your manager might be, because there's a really good chance that we don't even know that yet, okay? So there's a level of anonymity of just, you are a number, I'll tell you that. There's no way around it. When you have a company the size of 260,000 people, you're 260,001. So trying to find out and make it a personal application will not help you in this situation, okay? So it really is, make sure that your education is outlined as Galvanize. It's something that we've been told to pass on to HR, saying, these are Galvanize grads. These are grads from other boot camps. Like, they are looking for that in your resumes and your profiles. This is new for them too. We had, when we did the last hiring blitz, Cognizant wanted us to interview a group of people that they sent. Cognizant Tech sends 6-page, single-spaced, 10-point font resumes. Oh God, that was painful. So one page, and that's okay. We're educating HR on like what to expect. If it's 2, it's fine too. But like
They're all one page in here. I'm sure of it.
okay, good education. But it's taking education on both sides of it so that they're understanding what you have to offer. Part of what you have to offer too is an entirely previous career and lifespan before your experience at Galvanize too. We have a lot of developers that have only been developers and only know development, and they have been doing Java and C++ and everything for like 15 years, and that's great. But having a skill set to be able to pair with people is something that is new for Cognizant, and it is a learning process on a lot of levels. Being that we're an international company, there's a lot of cultural diversity in our company. 75% of our company is in India or Indian, and that culture struggles with close proximity. So even pairing with someone physically, it's been a challenge to teach what that looks like and how that works and how it benefits us. And we are still doing education on this actually makes you more efficient. This actually gets you better code. This actually gets higher quality out in front of our clients. So it's an educational process on lots of those different fronts. So the bottom line for most developers is billability, and you'll hear that over and over and over again. And I am in a completely non-billable role. I haven't written a line of code since I left Galvanize. I can still find the terminal. And I can still do hello world. But, and that was intentional. I chose that. But yeah, it's, we need some diversity there. We need to bring in those new practices and make that a more routine pattern across Cognizant. So I'm going to stop talking again. Yeah.
So are you building out these labs currently, and they're not formed yet?
Correct.
Okay, and so you've been working in a lab type situation for the past year or two?
Roughly.
Roughly. Now, what is the structure? I'm familiar with labs, but like, how do they actually kind of work, and how do they move and shift?
Okay, so not all the positions that we're talking about here are labs positions, just for perfect clarity. But a lab situation is such that they'll have a desk that has 8 stations. 4 of those will be internal Cognizant people, and 4 of those will be clients. We will bring clients to the office and be pairing with them so that they are actually hands-on, seeing what we're doing, coding alongside us, and actually working with us. That is a labs style. And then doing pull-out session and going, okay, we're going to meet with leadership for a minute here and hash out how we're going to redo this specific feature or not this specific feature. We talk a lot too about doing inceptions with clients. A big part of what we're going to face over probably the next 2 to 3 years is replatforming, moving everything out of this giant monolithic status and breaking those down. But there's always a situation where we're building out something completely new. So we sit down with a client, and we did this even at Quick Left. Lots of other smaller companies do this, and we're going to use this in our lab situations too, where we'll meet with a client and we'll have them do sticky note exercises of like, what features you think are important and prioritizing those, and what emotions do you want evoked by your specific site? How do you want somebody to interact with you? Actually profiling out who your clients are. And that means actually drawing a face, giving them a name, what are their play activities, how are they going to interact with this, and thinking about your client base, not just from who you're working with, but who's your end user too. So we work on a very product management level as well. So you'll get exposure to all those different things, because if you're expected to interact with a client, you'll need that skill set too. Yeah.
Why full stack?
Why full stack?
As opposed to back end or front end focus?
Again, that's kind of just the trend and direction that tech is going right now. You may end up being like, oh, you're going to be working front end. Oh, you're going to be working back end. You may get divided out by that, but the expectation right now for the requirements that are there and needed right now is for full stack.
I know you said there were a bunch of different stacks, but are there specific ones that you're most looking to hire in?
No. Broad scale.
Is that because of the client?
What was that?
Is that because of the client and whatever their requirements for their project would be?
That's the biggest thing. So, I mean, anything from Bosch and Java and C and everything in between to Angular and React and JavaScript and like you name it. Like if you've had any exposure, great. But not having something isn't going to limit you. So.
I want to start with a clarifying for those who are applying. So again, there's no need to try to make it a very personalized and a special tailored one because you won't know the hiring manager, and most people internally won't know either. Things to highlight are that you are a Galvanize grad. They're specifically looking for this. And then my question now is, how would one highlight that you're super open for travel, or is that worth doing, or how do you highlight, or should you highlight, I want a pair? How do we answer some of the pain points you've said and make ourselves stand out?
All right, so with resumes, you have the chance to not only list out what kind of projects you've worked on, what kind of languages and platforms you're familiar with, do a subset of skills like experienced, talented, whatever you want to call it, however you want to present it, but make sure that your pairing is in your top listings. That is one of the biggest things they're looking for right now is pairing, because we need to, we need to infect. We need you guys to be the carriers of the good germs here. But yeah, we need that. So list that as a priority. If that's something you're like, yep, this is my jam, I love it, I'm badass at this, then, because you will be asked to do a pairing assessment. So if it's not your strength, and even if it is, practice. Just do pairing activities with each other. So yeah, that will be part of the interview process. So outline it for sure and highlight it. Definitely put in your opening statement, your profile of flexibility on willingness to travel. Yep.
I have a question. When you say travel, you mean move to a new location, or once you're even in that location, there's a lot of travel to, you're sort of embedding in the businesses that you're helping travel?
Good question. So most of the time you will be relocated at least temporarily. And client projects can last anywhere from a couple of months to a couple of years. So the willingness to relocate at least temporarily. That being said, you may end up traveling for that client though too. So you may be based out of Teaneck, New Jersey, but you know they have an interface in San Francisco, and they want you to go and actually meet with a client there. So there's definitively travel within a position with any given client too.
And is that sort of pulling back the picture for this type of organization that's working business to business? Is that usually the expectation that the developer will travel to whatever business that you're working?
It really depends on the client and the client's ask. A lot of times clients are like, nope, you're going to be in our office here, and this is only where you're going to exist, and you're not even going to work out of a Cognizant office. That's the other thing. There is no Cognizant office of Colorado. There's no HR here. There's no place that you're going to go and interface. Trizetto and Quick Left's office are the only real Cognizant facilities in Colorado. So you may or may not be in an office with other colleagues. I met my supervisor for the first time like 2 days ago. So I've actually never met my boss. So yeah, it's do a lot of web conferencing, and it definitely plays on you. You get a very kind of talking head scenario. We don't do video chats. Let me tell you, we do not do video chats. Most of my phone calls are at 5:30 in the morning because 90% of my team is in India, and that's like 6 p.m. at night for them. So, but yeah, there's a lot of interconnection that way, but it can also feel very disconnected. You will have a core team of people that you work with, whatever site and whatever client you end up with, but that may change. So yeah, it's just depends on the client you end up getting tasked with.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm kind of piggybacking off that. Is there a process when you're pairing a lab with a client, and specifically like the devs involved in that lab?
It's something so new to Cognizant right now that there's not a, this is how we do it. If anything, they're really working from their experience and exposure with Pivotal. And so I'm sure you've all heard of the RPI, and it's kind of mysterious. It's the pair programming assessment that Pivotal does for their people, which is like the gold standard assessment. And it's To be perfectly fair, their matriculation is if they give that assessment, the RPI, to 3,500 people, they might be able to hire 30. Like, that is their matriculation when they give that assessment. So, we're not using that assessment. But the pairing aspect of it, and they're looking at not only your coding skills and your technical skills, they're looking at, can you be empathetic to the person you're pairing with? Can you communicate to that person in a tactful way of like, yeah, you spelled that wrong 6 ways to the wind. Like, can you do those things in such a way that's professional and growing for each other, and that you can be able to tag team off of one another, whether that be driver and navigator or ping pong or whatever that pairing style might be, how you actually interact with the person you're pairing with. So
I want to interject with a few questions from chat.
Yeah.
So the first one's around timing, and I guess beyond this hiring blitz. So the student says, I'm very interested. It will still be some time before I graduate. I might not be ready for this timeline. What does it sort of look like for Cognizant moving forward?
So like I said, we have several positions that we're working actively at hiring for right now. If you're not graduating for the next 2 to 3 months, that's not going away. I will make an effort to keep the postings available to you guys for the positions that we're specifically looking for you to fill. So if we have updates on that, if there's changes to that, I will convey that either on to James or throughout the Slack channels to make sure that those postings are still available to you. Given the size of company that we are, there will not be a shortage of positions. And it will be a revolving door. It's going to be a process. We don't hire fast. So yeah, if you're not graduating immediately, don't stress it.
When would you recommend they feel comfortable applying? When they got that capstone under their belts, or just wait till you graduated? Seeing as it's a process.
Yeah. So I guess my thought is that when you feel comfortable interviewing, that would be when you should put your application in. It could be weeks after that, it could be months after that before you actually get a call for an interview. But the point is that you don't want to put yourself out there to be in an interview situation if you're not feeling prepared for it. So they just want to make sure that you're technically sound and that you're solid and confident for that.
One other question from Slack. We have some data scientists that were tuned in. It says you're focusing on full stack. We have a data science track here at Galvanize as well. As you develop your pods, are there roles for data scientists? And how about those with a heavy business and IT consulting transformation background?
Absolutely. Just we don't have a job posting for it yet, but
okay,
for sure.
Definitely on the horizon.
Yes.
Then. All right, and then for those people who fit in that boat, similar to the last question, Tara and I will make sure that if those and when those positions become available, that they are communicated to all of you.
Yeah, for sure.
Can you elaborate more on the coding challenge part of the interview?
It will be platform/language agnostic, so you can do it in whatever language you feel strongest in, and it will be something that you can take home. All of the people doing our technical interviews at this point have been recent hires here, probably in the last 2 to 3 months. We have ways of knowing if you've cheated through it, but here's the other thing. This is one of my biggest issues with the education system in this country. We are brought up with the knowledge that there's one way to do things, there's one answer, it's at the back of the book, and if you look at it, it's cheating. And then you get to the real world and you're expected to collaborate with people. And suddenly what was cheating is now collaboration, and we have no skill set to actually interact with one another. So figure it out and feel comfortable with what you can do. And own what you don't. If you don't know, talk through what you think you should do. Put it out there. But if you're faking it, people will know. But just be aware of your own limitations and own it, and that's fine. Like we all have that. They're fully expecting to find those limits, okay? So you will be pushed to a point where you may or may not know the answer, and that's fine. Say, my best guess is blah, and this is the direction I would head. But I would go here and here and here to see if I could find more resources. they're looking to see whether you have a learning mind point and you can figure out how to problem solve. And so, yeah. Yeah.
The applying should be done on the Cognizant website versus like talent.
Doing both. Can't hurt, might help.
And I'm going to be sharing her the list on talent too, so we can make sure that their internal teams got all the Galvanize graduates.
For sure.
And these links are going to be going out heavy after this talk.
Yes.
So.
Yeah.
Can we more so expect contact maybe like mid-late January if we apply sometime right now?
That would be my best bet, if for no other reason than the holidays. I mean, it's chaos from now until then. So we're trying to figure out how to spend the rest of the end of the budget, and we're trying to figure out how to get more job postings up. So yeah, mid-January is a reasonable time to start expecting to hear. Yeah.
There's one thing about working at Cognizant that you can change besides things that you previously mentioned.
Yeah.
Like what would it be?
Let's see. The thing that I see that is changing, which is what I'm grateful for, is the transparency. They are working very, very hard to own the struggles that they have, and that's something that I'm really encouraged about from Cognizant. When we did the last hiring blitz, Ingrid and I just shriveled up under a desk and said we'd never talk to a code school grad again, because it was just humiliating and humbling beyond belief to say, yeah, we're going to do this in the next like 48 hours. And then watch Cognizant just plod through. And it was painful, and it was really frustrating because we see the benefits to you. And so I'm really encouraged by the steps that I'm seeing them take to try and remedy past experiences and the direction that they're heading. They are seeing, the frustrating thing is that our leadership is all new, which is a great thing because they have been in current technology and know what current best practice is. Now we're trying to pass that down and have that matriculate down to the workforce. And so that means that we have to get support top down from leadership to support the people that are still crunching code and writing code all day. So that is something that's still transitioning as well. So, but I'm seeing them take steps, and that's encouraging.
I was wondering if we could take a slight move away from Cognizant and just from Galvanizer to Galvanizer, if there was any advice that you could offer to them, the sort of like, what I wish I knew, lessons learned the hard way, that sort of thing, just good advice.
I'm surprised you actually asked me that, Dave.
I know. Playing with fire, but.
Yes, he is. I was G8. It was a struggling cohort. And there was a little bit of notorious matriculation down for the few generations that were immediately after us. We had a really rough cohort. I will own some of it for sure. My background isn't extensively within education. I practiced as a healthcare professional for 15 years. I have 3 degrees. Schooling wasn't a challenge for me. I mean, schooling's a challenge. But learning was I would be a student forever. I started medical school and chose not to because I didn't want to work 80 hours a week. But going to Galvanize, I gave very little thought to coding. I was like, oh, something new. I didn't think it would be a challenge because I'd been through enough education that I'm like, I can learn anything, like if I just put my mind to it. I was in the bottom of our class, and that was a deeply humbling experience for me. For somebody who's been through that much education and has seen success and been strong in educational experiences, to come in and exist at the bottom of the class was really a struggle. And I was putting in time and a half and then some. And so I had to really step back and actually take a look at what I wanted out of it. And I'm still paying on that price tag. But my background also is project management. And so I was like, okay, what can I do with this? Because I didn't feel strong enough to come out of that actually being someone who writes code. That was not a skill set I had coming out of Galvanize. But it also gave me sympathy to any of the developers that I came in contact with. I know what it is like to problem solve a bug and go, God, where's that damn period that I forgot? And figure out what it takes to actually do that. So it gave me a different direction, and that's why I went towards the project management side of it. I have that skill set, I've been there. And so I think it makes me a sympathetic person to be in that type of role, and having been through the education. So my advice would be, whether you're at the top or the bottom, like, take the educational experience to think about what you and your personality does best in. I don't want to write code. Like, I like people better than code, and I would rather interact with people more than I would rather interact with my screen. And so it's ironic that most of my job actually is still writing emails, but but the fact is that there's still a warm breathing body on the other end of that. And so any kind of program like this will push you and challenge you to see like what your strengths are and maximize on those. It just find that and explore it, be willing to learn outside of that, but if you know what you're strongest at, you're going to be able to contribute the best and the most from being where you feel good at. So find it, and support it, and run with it. The other thing that I will say for Cognizant is that their first 2 years, I don't know if they're still doing this, I believe so, but as a company, they are a huge supporter of diversity and equality. Every one of our female developers makes exact same dollar amount as the equivalent male developer. And that is something that they're really pushing for. And they actually publish salaries for your first 2 years so that they can give evidence that they are equal. And that is a phenomenal thing, and not something you're probably going to find pretty much anywhere else.
I have a few questions that came in from chat.
Yeah.
I'll just go with the most recent one, but we will get to them. First question, in the lab setting, is there still going to be outsourcing to India, or is this development going to be all in-house?
Outsourcing to India is kind of a different phrase because it's not actually outsourcing, it's still insourcing because it's still us.
It's still Cognizant.
So we will have teams in India that will work collaboratively. We will have a labs in Chennai, and so we'll probably have one in Bangalore too. So we will have lab setups all over North America. I'm also working, this is going to be probably a year or two out, but Melbourne and also London. Those are other locations that we're looking to do. There's very much a strong presence within Cognizant in Central Europe. So we will continue to work collaboratively because a huge part of our workforce is in India, but it's still all insourcing. So we'll just have teams that are actually working on projects with clients from India. So it's amazing. I have to say I have a huge amount of respect for our teams that work there, because there are certain teams that, because the client is based solely in North America, their work hours are North American work hours, which means that they are starting work at 6 p.m. and working through the night and working that 12-hour shift. So Cognizant has been very, very eye-opening for me as far as the unbelievable privilege that we have. Even within this country, we have developers within Cognizant that don't have guaranteed access to a laptop or Wi-Fi as a developer. That's amazing to me, but that is something that is not a guarantee. And so the laptop that they have belongs to the client, and they'll go and work with that at the client site. So the privilege that we experience is breathtaking. And the fact that offshore is like, oh, sure, okay, I'm working through the night on a project because that's what my client needs. Like, there's a pretty amazing response from their side as far as like, we're committed to our jobs, so.
That's really great. Another question from from chat. As a student going into a completely new field, what elements of working within Cognizant would help act as a good stepping stone into this career field?
I would say, given the company size, one of our other big challenges that I have mentioned, but is probably our biggest struggle, is communication. I mean, with that many people, I send out an email to one person, and when it comes back to me in a thread, there's 15 people added to it, and I was like, oh crap, and it just goes exponential. So really working on your communication. When you're thinking about your interview process too, work on using good language skills to convey not only in a technical skill set, but also in a non-technical skill set. So practice an interview set where you're...
Like pseudocoding? Like...
no, from a standpoint of pretend you're interviewing with a client. How would you explain something super technical? Like, how would you break that down for someone who's not technical? You're going to get asked questions both ways. So how would you interact with somebody who doesn't have any idea what you're talking about from a technical world? And then talk with someone too and explain it in terms of developer to developer, this is what's happening and this is where the breakdown is. So I would say communication skills is really something that the stronger you are in that, the more comfortable you are explaining both directions. That would be probably one of your biggest assets coming into a new company like this.
All right.
Cool.
Well, as a recap, we're going to be inviting Tara onto student Slack. She's already on alumni Slack. I'm going to be doing a lot of resource sharing with the links that we talked about today. Anyone, this chat or this whole presentation has been recorded. It's live on YouTube if you want to rewatch this or share it with a classmate. Yeah, and if there's more questions to follow, James on Slack, and I will make sure to coordinate the rest of that.
Cool. Great. Thanks so much, guys.
Thank you.
What's your handle on the alumni?
I think I'm Guitar. My last name is Guy.
Nice. So,
Thank you so much. I was really excited when I heard Cognizant. Yeah,
That's a good one.
Nick, what do you think, man?
Is that good?
Yeah. I'm excited. I like look around the class and everyone's like, they actually want to high school grads and they like that we like are learning React a little bit. Because you're used to hearing the opposite all the time. Like, no, you need to be 15 years .NET developer or we're going to talk to you. And I was like, that's all we have. Please just bring in something.
Thanks so much for coming back on campus for this. Much better than sitting at home on the screen and making me read your questions. Yeah, I haven't seen you in a minute. It's really easy, and just so you know, they're going to call you after and walk through it again. Just make sure you get help or something. I don't know what you get help on. It's like an SAT question. Yeah, it's kind of.
it's a one-to-one test.
Yeah.
You don't have time.
Really?
Oh, you really like, look at the last time they came on campus and all the questions that were answered.
Zoom. And we've already got something like 50 lightning talks and all the guest speakers we've had so far. That's what I'm saying, man. Mr. Fallon. What up, Nick?